I'm Val Graham, Marketing and Communications Manager at QBE Insurance, talking to you today about branding and the importance of branding for your business. Many people think brand identity is just about the logo. So there are many brands, strong brands, that have very differentiated logos. Examples of those would be, for example, BMW with the circle. Westpac with its red W would be another one. Audi with the 4 circles joined together. And when people think of brand identity, a lot of the time they identify with just the logos. Brand is actually much, much deeper than that, but logo is obviously an important area and can give you a huge differentiation so that people notice your brand as soon as they see the logo. So for example, when we see an iPod or an iPhone, we know exactly what the Apple is, we know exactly what the brand is. If we see, for example, the Olympic rings, we know exactly that that is in reference to the Olympics. So there are certain brands that are logos that are stuck in our minds, and that's largely because of very, very strong logos. But in fact, brand identity works on many, many different levels, and some of those levels I'd like to explore with you today. Some brands use colour as part of the identity. So for example, Cadbury with the very identifiable purple colour is very Cadbury. And in fact, a few years ago, they took Snow confectionery to court because Snow was selling chocolate eclairs with the purple colour. And Cadbury realised that this could lead people to pick up Snow confectionery instead of Cadbury. So they went to court to protect it and to claim the purple as very much Cadbury. And in fact, the judgment went in their favour because purple is seen by the public as a very Cadbury colour. Similarly, BP had the green colour that you see around BP stations. The Pantone green colour was specially manufactured for BP and specially protected for BP. These things are known as brand elements. So when we have a colour, a logo, a slogan, a jingle, these sorts of things are known as brand elements. And many of them are protectable in law. So for example, Harley-Davidson has apparently even trademarked the sound of the Harley-Davidson engine. But people look at the brand as being just a logo. In fact, it's much, much more. It's many, many more things. And what we're trying to do as brand strategists is get people to enrich the brand and the meaning of the brand by using a number of different elements to try to strengthen associations that people will have with the brand. If you have strong colour, logo, slogan, then you're likely to have a stronger brand. Keeping it authentic is not making something up for the sake of the brand. So Generation Y and Generation C, or the connected generation, are very conscious when something is not authentic, where somebody is a marketer who's trying to spin them something for the sake of selling product. Authenticity is really, really important nowadays, especially with a lot of social media being able to send stories around very, very quickly about any sort of feeling in a brand. So it's really important that when people are developing brands, that authenticity is really high on the agenda. Brand strategy is about the values attaching to your brand. Things like the personality of your brand, where your brand is positioned in the market, and also the essence of the brand. So taking those things one by one, the brand values, basically I think what you're asking yourself in the development of your brand is, what is your brand actually standing for? What are the words, and you're probably looking for just 4, maybe 5 words that really sum up what your brand is about. In financial services, I guess popular ones would be things like professionalism and integrity, service delivery, making the customer's day, because at the end of the day, working in financial services, the product is very, very easy to copy, and so where we can actually make a difference is in the service delivery. And a key word in branding is differentiation. brands can be copied very readily, but there are some things that differentiate your offering that cannot be copied. Service delivery would be one of those. Having a different voice, if your brand speaks with a different voice, if it has a very definite personality, that's something else which cannot be copied. So for example, if you are Richard Branson running Virgin Airlines and you're doing that great PR, being out there, there's nobody else can copy that personality, that vibrancy, that entrepreneurial spirit that comes through from a personality like Branson. He breaks a lot of rules in the branding rule book. But a personality like that serves to really differentiate an organisation. It's not always possible in an organisation, but it can be very helpful. The positioning of a brand. Are you a brand which is a pack and save, or are you a brand which is a Faro, you know, fresh? Are you somebody who's going to pack them high and sell them cheap, or are you going to differentiate through quality? So I guess as a financial services organisation, a brokerage, for example, are you going to go for customers where you can get them in and get them through the door and basically add a little bit of value but keep your volumes going and focus on your commission earnings? Or are you going to be a brokerage that really seeks to look for the quality clients where you can actually add a lot of value and make a lot more money in fee earnings because you can really add to the proposition? The essence of the brand would be a single word that would sum up what you are, a single word which would sum up what your brand delivers and what's different in the market about your brand. So, you know, it can be something which illuminates, or it can be something which is uber professional, or, you know, something which is relevant to the offering that you are putting into the market. In terms of personality, again, you're looking to try and establish what you are seeking to be. So are you seeking to be youthful, fun, which would be, you know, something like, you know, Swatch watches, or would you be seeking to be something which was older, more staid, more credible? You know, are you seeking to be more the Rolex? In terms of your positioning, that looks at the client side, that looks at what sort of clients you're attempting to actually drive towards your business. So are you looking to get people in who are young, professional at the early stages of their life who can grow with your business, or are you looking to get, you know, large end corporates or whatever? So the way in which you position your business will determine what sort of customers you drive towards you, because obviously the delivery is going to be paramount to whoever you're trying to drive to your business. You're going to seek some sort of match in having those same kind of personalities, because people do business with people like them. So you're seeking to try to match the personalities of those you're trying to seek as customers with those who are in your business. One of the other elements of strategy is in the naming of your brand. There's something called brand architecture, which determines how you name your brand and how your brands fit together. So if your brand is part of a stable of brands, then you can have differentiation of naming. An example of this would be Wesfarmers, for example, who own Lumley and own Crombie Lockwood, and those companies are very different in what they do and the positioning in the market. So one is a supplier and one is a brokerage, and the names don't have to be the same because they do very different things. Although they are related in terms of their ownership, they're not related in terms of the day-to-day business that they carry out. Similarly, Suncorp owning Vero, SunDirect, you know, Vero Liability, Asteron, they have a stable of brands which may interact internally, but which don't necessarily appear to be related to anybody from the outside looking in. That's what's known as a stable of brands. If we take, for example, BMW, they have a very different sort of brand architecture and brand strategy in terms of their naming. So they have the 1 Series, the 3 Series, the 5 Series, the 7 Series, and they're very, very clearly related. And people can see from the outset that they are related. And so that is where you're using one brand to strengthen the delivery of other brands. An example of a house of brands would be Procter & Gamble, where there are lots of different brands within one house, again, none of whom are interrelated as brands as such. Each one stands on its own merits, and Procter & Gamble has an active policy of brands competing with one another, which may seem strange, but basically they do that through very, very careful positioning of their brands in the market, such that each one is attracted or attractive to a different sort of person in the market. So whilst they compete, basically what the philosophy is that they would rather take the dollar as opposed to another company taking the dollar. In terms of brand naming, if you have a brokerage and you concentrate purely on insurance at the moment, be thinking about where you want to take your company in the future. Are you looking to expand into the greater financial services market? Are you looking to add on other areas like life insurance, investments, mortgages? If so, then you're probably looking at trying to establish a name which is broader than something which ends in something or other insurance brokers. So I guess when Mike Pero Mortgages was established, he wasn't thinking that down the track he might become Mike Pero Real Estate as well. Had he established a brand which was more flexible, he might have found that he could stretch that brand from one thing to the other quite readily. Whereas he has now 2 separate brands which are, I guess, which take separate advertising budgets and which sit in different spaces. Being able to have one brand where you have one advertising budget would possibly have saved him there and would mean that he would be able to leverage across other different areas. So whilst at the moment he has mortgages and real estate, probably adding other financial services such as life insurance and general insurance onto that is a sensible step. So if he had an umbrella branding strategy where he could have spread into other areas, that would have been more sensible from the outset. So when one looks at naming strategy, you should be looking long term as to what sort of areas you might want to move into, and try and think over the long term what your possibilities could be and make sure your brand is flexible enough to deal with that. So I guess the hard bit in branding is taking it from being a concept, taking it from being something which is a logo, a slogan, into something which you actually deliver in reality. So how do we actually do that? Well, one of the ways that we can do that in a service industry through financial services is by making sure that our employees fully understand what our brand is and fully understand what it is that we're trying to deliver to our customers. Some research in 2005 says that only 33% of employees understood what the brand was that they were working for. 33%, which means that there's a huge opportunity cost there. You know, 2/3 of people meandering around not knowing what it is they're supposed to be delivering to the end consumer. So in your business, what you need to be looking at is, do your employees have full understanding of what your brand stands for? How is that to be delivered to the end consumer? How are you actually executing the delivery of your brand? So if you're trying to differentiate through service, if you're trying to differentiate through added value, through more technical information, or trying to deliver a better solution to your domestic customer, is your employee actually very clear about how that is being delivered? Do you have a strategy that says what exactly they are going to follow to actually deliver that to your end consumer? Basically, the way that you bring your brand alive and the way that you really differentiate is in this area. This is where the rubber hits the road. So you really need to know where your employee perceives your brand, how engaged they are in terms of how they deliver. Everybody can talk about, you know, examples of bad service, examples of where people did not meet the brand promise. Everybody has an expectation. In fact, nowadays people have a much higher expectation. Everything is a higher expectation, it's more immediate, and they are much more critical of when things are not delivered the way they expect. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're telling people about bad experiences. So I guess for a brand manager, and in fact, everybody who delivers to customers, particularly important in a service industry, what we need to be looking at is, does everybody fully understand what we're trying to deliver? Are they delivering it the way we expect? And what are we going to do if it's not working out the way that people expect it to be? What happens when people start talking about us negatively on Twitter and Facebook? How are we actually managing that? How are we dealing with that? Do we have people within our organisations who are managing our reputation as well, and making sure that we retain the good, positive corporate ideal that we've set for ourselves in the business plan at the start of the year? So I guess it's important to actually talk to your employees about the meaning behind your brand, make sure that they understand what your brand means, and also make sure that they have an emotional commitment to delivering that to your customers. That's what's going to set your brand apart. It's the emotional attachment, it's the passion that the employee has for the brand, which is going to set your brand apart in the market. And if there's one word that sums up all of branding, it is that word differentiation. And what we aim to do as brand marketers is to look at all of those things that pertain to your brand. And it's our job to take those elements and work with them to really devise something which sets your brand apart. That's in the logo, the slogan, the way that you look, the way that your employees think and deliver your brand every day. And most of all, something which really speaks from the heart, something which is really authentic about your brand. Let's not try and kid anyone that we are something we're not. It has to come from here. It has to be something authentic, the real truth behind your brand. And that, if you have a really successful brand, is what people will buy into. And that's why they'll come back. And that's why you'll have good, loyal, repeat customers. So good luck with that out there.